Chapter 7 The Consecrating of Vijaya. When the guide of the world, having accomplished the salvation of the whole world, and having reached the utmost stage of blissful rest, was lying on the bed of his nibbana, in the midst of the great assembly of gods, he, the great sage, the greatest of those who have speech, spoke to Sakka, who stood there near him. Vijaya, son of King Sihabahu, is come to Lanka from the country of Lala, together with 700 followers. In Lanka, O Lord of gods, will my religion be established. Therefore, carefully protect him with his followers and Lanka. When the Lord of gods heard the words of the Tathagata, he, from respect, handed over the guardianship of Lanka to the god who is in color like the lotus. And no sooner had the god received the charge from Sakka than he came speedily to Lanka and sat down at the foot of a tree in the guise of a wandering ascetic. And all the followers of Vijaya came to him and asked him, "What island is this, sir?" "The island of Lanka," he answered. "There are no men here, and here no dangers will arise." And when he had spoken so, and sprinkled water on them from his water vessel, and had wound a thread about their hands, he vanished through the air. And there appeared in the form of a bitch, a yakini who was an attendant of Kuvana. One of Vijaya's men went after her, although he was forbidden by the prince, for he thought, "Only where there is a village are dogs to be found." Her mistress, a yakini named Kuvana, sat there at the foot of a tree spinning, as a woman hermit might. When the man saw the pond and the woman hermit sitting there, he bathed there and drank, and taking young shoots of lotuses and water in lotus leaves, he came forth again. And she said to him, "Stay, thou art my prey." Then the man stood there as if fast bound, but because of the power of the magic thread, she could not devour him. And though he was entreated by the yakini, the man would not yield up the thread. Then the yakini seized him and hurled him who cried aloud into a chasm. And there in like manner she hurled all the 700 men one by one after him. And when they all did not return, fear came on Vijaya, armed with the 5 weapons, the plough, the sword, the bow, the battle axe, the spear, and the shield. He set out, and when he beheld the beautiful pond, where he saw no footstep of any man coming forth, but saw that woman hermit there, he thought, "Surely my men have been seized by this woman." And he said to her, "Lady, hast thou not seen my men? What dost thou want with thy people, prince?" She answered, "Drink thou and bathe." Then was it clear to him, "This is surely a yakini, she knows my rank," and swiftly, uttering his name, he came at her drawing his bow. He caught the yakini in the noose about the neck, and seizing her hair with his left hand, he lifted his sword in the right and cried, "Slave, give me back my men, or I slay thee." Then, tormented with fear, the yakini prayed for him for her life. "Spare my life, sir. I will give thee a kingdom, and do thee a woman's service and other service as thou wilt." And that he might not be betrayed, he made the yakini swear an oath. And so soon as the charge was laid on her, "Bring hither my men with all speed," she brought them to that place. When he said, "These men are hungry," she showed them rice and other foods and goods of every kind that had been in the ships of those traders whom she had devoured. Vijaya's men prepared the rice and condiments, and when they had first set them before the prince, they all ate them. When the yakini had taken the first portions of the meal that Vijaya handed to her, she was well pleased, and assuming the lovely form of a 16-year-old maiden, she approached the prince adorned with all the ornaments. At the foot of a tree, she made a splendid bed, well covered around with a tent and adorned with a canopy. And seeing this, the king's son, looking forward to the time to come, took her to him as his spouse and lay with her blissfully on the bed. and all his men encamped around the tent. As the night went on, he heard the sounds of music and singing, and asking the Yakini who was lying near him, "What means this noise?" And the Yakini thought, "I will bestow kingship on my lord, and all the Yakas must be slain, for else the Yakas will slay me, for it was through me that men have taken up their dwelling in Lanka." And she said to the prince, "Here there is a Yaka city called Sirisavatu. The daughter of the chief of the greatest Yakas who dwells in the city of Lanka has been brought hither, and her mother too is come. The bride's father, Mahakalasena, the bride, Polamita, and the mother, Gonda. And for the wedding there is high festival, lasting 7 days. Therefore there is this noise, for a great multitude is gathering together. Even today do thou destroy the Yakas, for afterwards it will no longer be possible." He replied, "How can I slay the Yakas who are invisible?" "Wheresoever they may be," she said, "I will utter cries, and where thou shalt hear the sound, strike, and by my magic power shall thy weapon fall upon their bodies." Since he listened to her and did even as she said, he slew all the Yakas, and when he had fought victoriously, he himself put on the garments of the Yaka king, and bestowed the other raiment on one and another of his followers. When he had spent some days at the spot, he went to Thambapani. There Vijaya founded the city of Thambapani and dwelt there, together with the Yakini, surrounded by his ministers. When those who were commanded by Vijaya landed from their ship, they sat down wearied, resting their hands upon the ground, and since their hands were reddened by touching the dust of the red earth, that region and also the island were named Thambapani. But the king Sihabahu, since he had slain the lion, was called Sihala, and by reason of the ties between him and them, all those followers of Vijaya were also called Sihala. Here and there did Vijaya's ministers found villages. Anuradhagama was built by a man of that name near the Kadampa river. The chaplain Upatissa built Upatissagama on the bank of the Gambira river to the north of Anuradhagama. 3 other ministers built each for himself Ujjaini, Uruvela, and the city of Vijita. When they had founded settlements in the land, the ministers all came together and spoke thus to the prince, "Sire, consent to be consecrated as king." But in spite of their demand, the prince refused the consecration unless a maiden of noble house was consecrated as queen at the same time. But the ministers, whose minds were eagerly bent upon the consecrating of their Lord, and who, although the means were difficult, had overcome all anxious fears about the matter, sent people entrusted with many precious gifts, jewels, pearls, and so forth to the city of Madura in southern India to woo the daughter of the Pandu king for their lord, devoted as they were to their ruler, and they also sent to woo the daughters of others for the ministers and retainers. When the messengers were quickly come by ship to the city of Madura, they laid the gifts and letter before the king. The king took counsel with his ministers, and since he was minded to send his daughter to Lanka, he, having first received also daughters of others for the ministers of Vijaya, nigh upon 100 maidens, proclaimed with beat of drum, "Those men here who are willing to let a daughter depart for Lanka shall provide their daughters with a double store of clothing and place them at the doors of their houses. By this sign shall we know that we may take them to ourselves." When he had thus obtained many maidens and had given compensation to their families, he sent his daughter, bedecked with all her ornaments and all that was needful for the journey, and all the maidens whom he had fitted out according to their rank, elephants withal, and horses and wagons, worthy of a king, and a craftsman, and 1,000 families of the 18 guilds, entrusted with a letter to the conqueror Vijaya. All this multitude of men disembarked to Mahatita. For that very reason is that landing place known as Mahatita. Vijaya had 1 son and 1 daughter by the Yakini. When he now heard that the princess had arrived, he said to the Yakini, "Go thou now, dear one, leaving the 2 children behind. Men are ever in fear of superhuman beings." But when she heard this, she was seized with fear of the Yakas. Then he said again to the Yakini, "Delay not. I will bestow on thee an offering by spending 1,000 pieces of money." When she had again and again besought him in vain, she took her 2 children and departed for Lankapura, though fearing the evil should come of it. She set the children down outside and went herself into that city. When the Yakas in the city recognized the Yakini, in their terror they took her for a spy, and there was great stir among them. But one who was violent killed the Yakini with a single blow of his fist. But her uncle, on the mother's side, a Yaka, went forth from the city, and when he saw the children, he asked them, "Whose children are you?" And hearing that they were Kuena's, he said, "Here has your mother been slain, and they will slay you also if they see you. Therefore flee swiftly." Fleeing with speed, they went from thence to the Sumanakuta, Adam's Peak. The brother, the elder of the 2, when he grew up, took his sister, the younger, for his wife. And multiplying with sons and daughters, they dwelt, with the king's leave, there in Malaya, central mountain region in the interior of Ceylon. From these are sprung the Pulinda, the people of Sabragamua, or the Vedas. The envoys of the Pandu king delivered up to the prince Vijaya the gifts and the maidens, with the king's daughter at their head. When Vijaya had offered hospitality and bestowed honors on the envoys, he bestowed the maidens according to their rank upon the ministers and retainers. According to custom, the ministers in full assembly consecrated Vijaya king and appointed a great festival. Then King Vijaya consecrated the daughter of the Pandu king with solemn ceremony as his queen. He bestowed wealth on his ministers, and every year he sent to his wife's father a shell pearl worth twice 100,000 pieces of money. When he had forsaken his former evil way of life, Vijaya, the lord of men, ruling over all Lanka in peace and righteousness, reigned, as is known, in the city of Tambapani 38 years. Here ends the 7th chapter, called The Consecrating of Vijaya, in the Mahavamsa, compiled for the serene joy and emotion of the pious.